Dumont, who was with her family inside the bowling alley. She says a kids' league was underway when shots rang out. How many shots did you hear fired?
Oh gosh, I would probably say like maybe 4 or 5.
And you said it felt like it went on forever.
Yeah, it felt like it lasted a lifetime.
Riley says her father, Ron Dumont, a retired police officer, leapt into action.
My dad's been a police officer for 40 years, and he literally just went into action in that moment and just kind of corralled us all and made sure we were all safe and that the scene, he was waiting for the cops to walk through the front door, and he put protection in front of us and tables and like a big bench that the kids were hiding behind. I was scooched on the floor with my daughter and my mom and a couple of other kids and parents.
And you are convinced your father helped save people?
Yeah.
What were the sights and the sounds as the gunfire is underway?
I just remember people sobbing and crying, and people around me were not screaming, but like whimpering, and my mom and I were just trying to keep everybody quiet and consoling each other. But I really, like, the sounds that I heard were only closest to me, and then the gunshot sound, and that's all I remember hearing.
I want to talk about the mass shooting in Maine and what we know about it, and what happened in July when the suspect in question actually threatened to take down a army facility. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna talk about that. And before we go ahead and get into everything here, I just want to mention here too, guys, it's always good to check up and make sure that you know who you're hanging out with, who your friends are hanging out with, who your kids are going to go and hang out with, and their parents and all that. So with that being said, Truthfinder is a great way to be able to do that. It's a great way to be able to just check up and have that little bit of peace of mind. I use it all the time just to check up and make sure that, you know what, I know who I'm talking to, and making sure that if, I know that, if there's a sexual predator and stuff, that I can keep me and my family safe. So, yeah. So go ahead and feel free to check out Truthfinder. It is in the link. So, okay. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the Maine shooting and what we know about it. I mean, I know that there are quite a few people still in the hospital from this, so the shooting number could go up, but it could be the biggest shooting that has taken place here. Arrest warrant for the person that they believe that is responsible for all this, and I think that that fugitive is Robert Card. So he's issued on at least 8 counts of murder. And I mean, as victims are still trying to be identified here, and the shooting in Maine on Wednesday night. I mean, it was just Wednesday night. Just 8 people at least were killed at the bar and grill. 7 were killed at the just-in-time bowling alley. Well, 3 after being transported to the hospital have died too. Those are just the confirmed people where their family members have come in and said, yes, that is them. So they still haven't found him. They're trying to find him, the 40-year-old Card. So he did in July, he went ahead and threatened to shoot up the army base of where he is stationed at. So he's actually a trained armsman. He actually teaches these guys how to do this. So it's kind of terrifying in the fact that, we have someone that is trained to do this, that is supposed to be like on our side, fighting for our freedoms and our rights, and is flat out attacking our own people. And it goes to say too that, this is a bigger issue with, of course, with mental health and all that as well. Someone said, oh, the city doesn't deserve this terrible assault on the citizens. Actually, I don't think he's been in the U.S. Army Reserve since December 2002. Okay. His rank is Sergeant First Class. and his job is the supply specialist. He doesn't have any combat deployments, they said, though. So he's never actually been deployed, but still being in that situation and being taught, like, I have to teach these guys how to do X, Y, and Z, you know? And I mean, we won't know what's going through his head unless we actually are able to talk to him. So, yeah, and he has those 8 counts right now for murder. And once those 10 are identified, that will go up. But what's crazy to me is that they still allowed him, even in July, even after he threatened to shoot up his own army base, he was still there. And that says something. Like, they were just like, oh, I mean, was it like, this is just my opinion, but was it just like, oh, he's just having a bad day and wants to, you know, kill the whole army base? That's okay. Let's just, we'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm kind of concerned on that one. I'm curious because he's never been into combat at all. That how and why did it take him like take such a toll on him? Because obviously you can't say that you've been in that situation for 16 years and it didn't do that, and that you wanted to shoot up the army base and that just didn't take a toll on you. I mean, of course it did. And that just goes to show too that we need more like mental help, because that is, I mean, trying to prepare someone to go to war and fight for war and to essentially be okay dying is terrifying. And for a lot of people, they don't have a choice. They feel like that's their only way to, you know, provide for their families and stuff, which, and it really sucks too if you decide that that's not for you, that you can't get out. Because if you decide that you don't want to do it anymore, you can go to jail. It's
Another American city shaken by a senseless mass shooting after a gunman in Lewiston, Maine opened fire on a youth night at the town's bowling alley and then a restaurant.
At least 16 people are dead and dozens more were injured. There is an active manhunt right now for the person of interest. He is considered armed and very dangerous. As we come on the air, the shelter-in-place order has expanded, and people are urged to stay inside and lock their doors. Schools in the area are closed this morning.
The gunman stormed a place where families took their children to have fun. He did not stop there, making his way to a second location, the worst mass shooting of the year. Townspeople hid for their lives. Parents shielded their children. Families fled the scene. Some of them got out to reunite with their loved ones. We will hear from survivors this morning. Our team is tracking the latest developments on this tragedy. We begin with Whit Johnson on the scene in Lewiston, Maine. Good morning, Whit.
George, good morning to you. Sadly, we've become all too familiar with these types of tragedies, and here we are again at the scene of what is expected to be the deadliest shooting so far of 2023. At least 16 people killed, and behind me is that crime scene, the street blocked off. And if you go halfway down the street, that's where the bowling alley is that was hosting a youth night for children. That's where this suspect began his killing spree, and now an entire community on edge as that killer, considered armed and dangerous, is still on the run.
2 active shooter locations, all available units.
This morning, a massive manhunt underway for an armed and dangerous killer after a mass shooting in Maine's second largest city.
Yeah, an active shooter. We have multiple injuries.
The first 911 call coming in around 7 p.m. from a local bowling alley hosting a youth night for kids bowling league. Authorities releasing these surveillance images showing the suspected gunman armed with a rifle where he began his killing spree.
Well, we were inside and just normal night of bowling, and out of nowhere he just came in and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door, and as soon as I turned and saw it was not a balloon, he was holding a weapon, I just booked it down the lane and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machines for about 10 minutes until the cops got there.
The suspect then traveling about 4 miles to the second shooting scene at a local bar and restaurant.
There are multiple scenes in the city, to include multiple hospitals, a lot of witnesses we're speaking with.
At least 16 people killed and dozens injured.
It's all ages. It was all ages.
Police have identified 40-year-old Robert Card as the person of interest. Sources telling ABC News he has a history of military service and is a firearms instructor, and was treated at a mental health facility over the summer after allegedly saying he was hearing voices and threatened to shoot up a National Guard facility in Saco, Maine.
If people see him, they should not approach Card or make contact with him in any way.
Authorities discovering the suspect's white Subaru around 11:30 p.m., 8 miles from the Lewiston crime scenes. The car seen with the door open and lights on. With the suspected killer on the run, the community placed on lockdown, people told to shelter in place. Overnight, we spoke with Megan Hutchinson and her 10-year-old daughter Zoe, who were at the bowling alley.
When I turned around, I saw the shooter right behind me. He had just come in the door. I don't know if that was just a warning shot or if he actually shot somebody with that one. But between the lanes, there's some swinging doors, like where they keep all the mechanical stuff out back. So we kind of all just ran that way. We barricaded in there, and another parent was in the room with me. She had a phone. She called 911.
Zoe's leg grazed by a bullet. The young girl now unable to comprehend the horrific crime scene she witnessed.
It's just shocking. It's something that you'd think would never happen. I never thought I'd grow up and get a bullet in my leg. Why? Why do people do this? I was more worried about, am I going to live? Am I going to make it out of here? What's going to happen? Are the cops going to come?
Questions no child should ever have to ask. This community here gripped by fear right now. That lockdown is in place in Lewiston and surrounding communities. People told to stay indoors, lock their doors. Businesses and schools are closed as more than 100 investigators comb the area looking for that suspect. We've also learned that President Biden was briefed on that situation overnight. In fact, he was removed from a state dinner with the Australian Prime Minister so that he could get on the phone and make calls to local officials here in Maine.
Jesus. All ages were killed at a youth bowling center. A 10-year-old had her leg grazed, and she's wondering if she's gonna live while she's going bowling. So he threatened in July to shoot up the Army base that he was an instructor at. He went to a mental hospital over the summer. Why the hell was he let out? Was there I have so many questions on why was he let out? What kind of treatment process did they do? Did they keep up on that? I have a lot of questions in that aspect. Why? From my understanding, I could be wrong, but he went back to the Army base and was stationed there still after all this. I could be wrong. Jesus. And the warning signs are there. They're there. And he did that in July, and now it's October. So obviously, they let him out and stuff. So where was the line? Where was the line that they drew to let him continue to be in the Army base and to let him out of the mental hospital? This is why, too, I feel like it is. So there is the red flag law that is in some states. And I've gone into this before. So I'm not going to go fully into it. But basically, in some states, if you feel like someone you know is going to harm themselves or others, you can call the police and then they can do a welfare check on them. And if they feel like, yeah, this is a danger, they can hold your gun for you for a while until, you get your stuff figured out. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not anti-gun. I'm not saying that either. I'm not anti-gun. But I'm not opposed to, if someone thinks that they're going to harm themselves or others and they tell someone about it, that person can call the cops and be like, hey, I'm worried about this person either taking their lives or someone else's. I don't think that's wrong either. I don't know. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think on this. If I find GoFundMes or anything like that for the families of the victims, I'll definitely link them. But I do think, I feel like this is definitely a bigger issue. It needs to be, spoken to, especially when it comes to people in the Army and their mental health and stuff like that. Because what 40-year-old wants to go to a bowling alley and kill children? All right. Well, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Like, subscribe, give me your thoughts on everything. All right. And as always, guys, just keep fucking going.